Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Colleen Gregerson. I am the executive director of Battery Power, the philanthropic arm of the Battery here. I am so delighted to be here tonight. I have to be honest, I have been looking forward to this night all week, and that is really saying something for a week when we inaugurated, a new presidential administration. But no, I was like, no, I'm waiting for Thursday night. That's what I'm excited about this week because I could not wait to be here with this incredible group of folks. This is part of our virtual Sparked. For those of you who have attended Sparked in person, it's so awesome when we have it in person. Can't do it this year, so we decided to do this virtual offering. But I really wanted to have a program that was inspiring, that was all about inspiration. Like it's been a hard year, and it's been a tough year, and it has felt extremely divisive. It feels like divisions are at an all-time high. But I really believe that underneath all of that, there is way more that unites us than divides us. And we have a lot to look forward to. Nothing really gives me more hope than the young people of our country, and to see them at the forefront of every important issue of our time right now, from climate change to gun violence to racial justice to a healthy democracy, has been incredible. And I think is the real reason why we are seeing movement in some of these spaces, movement that we never dreamed possible in the past, is because of these young people. So it's really our honor to have a few of these folks with us tonight, to discuss the next generation of activism. I'm going to do like just a minute of housekeeping. I know we're all super familiar and tired of Zoom, so I won't do much here. We are in webinar format, so to all of our participants, we can't see you, but thank you for being here. We're so delighted to have you. We will be taking questions. We'll have about 15 minutes towards the end of our time to do audience Q&A. So in your Zoom platform, you'll see at the bottom the Q&A box. So anytime throughout the discussion tonight, just pop any questions that you have into the Q&A, and we'll get to as many of those as possible towards the end. That's it for the logistics. I'm going to briefly try to introduce these folks, but let me just be clear that I'm not going to do them justice, and I want to get over to their discussion as quickly as possible. So this is like a tiny bit of their awesomeness. Jamie Margolin started 0 Hour in 2017, which is a youth-led movement creating entry points, training, and resources for new young activists and organizers wanting to take concrete action around climate change. She recently wrote a book. It is called Youth to Power, Your Voice and How to Use It. It has a foreword by Greta Thunberg. You need to buy it. And if you have young people in your life, you need to buy it for them. Yay, Jonah has it. And send it to them as a gift. So super excited to have Jamie with us tonight. Next, we have Tiana Day. She is the founder of a nonprofit called Youth Advocates for Change. She was recently named one of CNN's 2020 heroes. Congratulations. She is an advocate for a lot of different social justice issues, but most notable is her work with the Black Lives Matter movement. She organized the first Black Lives Matter march across the Golden Gate Bridge, which took place in June of 2020. So excited to have you, Tiana. Thank you for joining us. And we also have Jonah Gottlieb. He is the co-host of our Future Now podcast and a political organizer. He is also the founder of the National Children's Campaign, which is a national level nonprofit amplifying voices of America's youth to make sure that our nation's political leaders prioritize the issues that matter to young people. Now, moderating this phenomenal group tonight is a star in his own right, Khafre Jay. He is the founder and executive director of Hip Hop for Change, an organization we've had at the Battery a few times. But if you haven't met them yet, you are going to tonight, and you need to meet them. They're a nonprofit based in San Francisco, educates young people, well, all people, but a focus on young people and the power of hip hop culture, empowers them to express themselves through the arts. Khafre and his team have worked with over 23,000 youth across California, giving them tools for positive self-expression. So we are in super good hands tonight with Khafre, and I'm going to hand it over to you now. All yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Colleen. I really appreciate it. And I'm really excited to be a part of this. Battery, you folks have been so amazing. But yeah, you young folks are inspiring. Like, y'all literally make me think what I was doing at your age. And if I would have had people like you in my circle, where would I be right now? So thank y'all for who y'all are and the opportunity to ask you some amazing questions. I appreciate this. So to kick it off, and this is close to my heart because I'm an activist. And I love to hear about how people got into it. So, what sparked the passion for the work that you're doing today? You know, and let's start off with Jamie. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, hello. So what sparked the passion for me, honestly, initially it was kind of existential dread. To a degree. I mean, I'm a climate justice activist, so I learned about the climate crisis and they learned about the existential threat that it was. And I just couldn't not take action. And so initially I was motivated by fear, but then as I continued to take action, get involved in my community, I was an organizer in Seattle, Washington. I started to get excited about the solutions as well. But honestly, if I'm being completely honest, my initial motivator was fear, in terms of fear of the climate crisis, fear of how it would harm me. I initially started getting really scared in second grade, and I had my first attempt at activism in second grade, where I made little I must have seen some documentary or something about it, and I got scared, and so I made these little green club pins for like my classmates, and I handed them out, and I'm like, we're the green club, and they're like, what do we do? And I was like, I don't know. And then that was the end of that. I didn't know what I was doing. And then fast forward to when I was 14 years old in ninth grade. Ninth grade is when I actually officially started becoming an organizer and taking action. That is because of the 2016 election, which, spoiler alert, we all knew how that went. And I was an organizer at my Democratic campaign headquarters. I was an intern during the general election trying to prevent 45 from getting elected. And then I was doing all this hard work. I was like, if we can, I want to have Democrats in office because at least they believe in climate change. And then didn't work out. And then after that, I started doing more issue-based activism instead of just electoral work. And that led me into doing community organizing in my city of Seattle and so on and so forth. And I won't get into everything, but yeah, initially it was just a lot of fear that motivated me, and just
Yeah. It
seeing the
sounds like you've been focused on this type of activism your whole life. Awesome. All right. Next, why don't we talk? Tiana, why don't you let us know what sparked you?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and be among these amazing panelists as well. I'm Tiona, I'm 18 years old, and I have a very different story than Jamie. I mean, I would say I just kind of got thrown into activism. I would never consider myself an activist. I never did leadership, none of that growing up. I was kind of the very much I want to fit in type girl, and I guess what you could say sparked my want to change, and was really like internal for me. Like it was really like, I mean, I grew up in a predominantly white area, and being one of the only Black families, it was really, really hard for me. And not only was it hard just being like part Black, but I'm also just partially Black. So it felt like I was constantly having identity issues. My mom is from the Philippines and my dad is from America. But I mean, with all, like, if you go back into history, it's like he doesn't even know where his roots are from in Africa. And to me, it just constantly was feeling like some type of, I was going through identity crisis 24/7. In middle school, I would straighten my hair every day, wake up at 5 a.m. and literally flat iron my curls to crisps. And I would try to stay out of the sun, not go to the beach with my friends so I wouldn't get paler skin. And my friends would say, you're my favorite Black person, and all this stuff. And I thought that was so normal. I was like, oh yeah, like cool. I get to be like the cool, like whitewashed Black girl. And that's what everyone knew me as. And I got into high school and I was kind of like, I don't want to be this person anymore, trying to be that someone that I wasn't, just because I grew up in this area where everyone has so much money. And I just felt like I don't belong here. My dad works 5 jobs every single day, and he comes home exhausted. I see him twice a week, and people are assuming he's like not in my life because he doesn't, they don't see him. And it's just like the stereotypes just kind of like killed my vibe 24/7 growing up. I lived in the same community all 14 years going to school. So I kind of decided once I got to high school, now I want to expand and kind of understand my Blackness more. There were some more Black students who went to my high school, still in the same district, still in the same area, but they ended up kind of getting close with them. And at one point they pushed away and were like, no, you're not even one of us. You grew up here, you grew up like all the other suburban kids. And I actually ended up getting jumped by the only Black students I've ever kind of been around. And it left me out of school for 2 years. I had a concussion and I couldn't return back to school until my second semester senior year, which was actually when COVID hit last year. And that was when I saw the whole George Floyd video go down, and I was like, this may be worse than the pandemic for me. And like personally, like, you know, I felt like everything was getting torn apart for me. I didn't know if I was going to school anymore. I didn't know, I was a very big cheerleader, but you know, everything was getting torn away from me. And it was like, right now, I feel like everything needs to be put on hold, and I need to dedicate my life to finding who I am. And I found it through this movement of Black Lives Matter. And yeah, I would say just kind of my background and growing up feeling like I had to suppress my emotions and feel like I had to push who I was aside, and just never feeling true to who I am. And that was really what sparked my interest in activism. And we'll get into it a little bit later. But yeah, I kind of just got thrown into it. And it was that week of graduating my high school year, I guess all 4 years, that I got involved in the movement and just activism in general.
All right, Jonah, what sparked you?
Yeah, so I kind of like Jamie have been, you know, peripherally involved for longer than I can remember. But really my inciting moment was the first of the large scale wildfires that hit Northern California way back in 2017. So I live in Berkeley now, but I had, until last week, lived in Sonoma County for the vast majority of my life. So the first time that the fires hit on October 9th, 2017, we just woke up with people pounding on our door at 3 a.m. Fortunately, our house was outside the evacuation zone, but we had a bunch of our friends from about 20, 25 minutes north of us who had all been evacuated in the middle of the night. And so we had throughout the week anywhere from like 10 to 25 people staying with us, all stuck inside, unable to go out because of the smoke. And admittedly, this story sounds a lot cooler when other people weren't used to wearing masks and being stuck in the house all the time. But so we're stuck in the house this whole time, you know, 12-year-olds and dogs just bouncing off the walls. And I just realized, you know, I learned about climate change in school. I had seen David Attenborough documentaries, but I hadn't really seen anyone that I could tell doing anything. And obviously there were, you know, tons of great activists who had been doing things for years, but they weren't getting the attention that they needed. And they weren't getting to someone like me who wanted to get involved and wanted people to change things and wanted to be a part of that change, but just didn't know how. And so I just started kind of asking around, and I ended up going to my congressman's office in Washington, D.C. a few months later and talking to him about the climate crisis and, you know, why we needed to move aggressively if we wanted to give our generation and future generations the best possible chance of mitigating the worst impacts of this crisis that humanity is facing. And so I started getting involved with a group called Schools for Climate Action. And I later became the director of that organization. And so we worked with school boards and student councils and teachers unions and other ed sector organizations to pass climate action resolutions and get teachers and school administrators and folks like that on the record publicly saying, we serve children as our jobs, and so Congress needs to serve young people as well and take action on the biggest problem that is facing them. And so to date, we've passed, I think, around 136, don't quote me on that, resolutions nationwide, and I think about 17 states in Washington, D.C. And later that organization we got folded into the National Children's Campaign, which is an organization I co-founded with several other folks really with the goal of taking the great youth energy that we've seen in recent years, thanks to folks like Jamie and other great environmental activists, and really bringing that same attention to all the issues that are impacting young people and making sure that we, as a generation, are standing up with one unified voice, whether we're fighting for climate action, whether we're fighting for Black lives, whether we're fighting against the takeover of politics by corporate dollars. That all young people have a voice in politics, whether or not they're old enough to vote.
Well put, well put. Awesome. I'm hearing themes of like, you folks taking advantages of moments that like catalyzed all this work in y'all. Tiana, I want you to share the story of how you got involved with the March on the Golden Gate Bridge. Inspirational. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you. So if you guys remember my story, we'll go back to that. I just graduated high school. I'm going to paint the scene for you as realistically as possible. Just graduated high school. I was on my way to go play D1 stunt, which is competitive cheer, at a college in Southern California. I thought, that's my only purpose in life. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. And to me, it was just like cheerleading and friends, and that's everything. And then I see this viral video of George Floyd, and I'm just like, how have I been? I mean, I knew about Black Lives Matter. I saw Trayvon Martin. I saw all of these other names go down, but this one was just like, the reaction that the youth was giving, that social media was putting out to this video, like, I was just like, this is so stupid that people are reacting like this. Like, these black screens, are you kidding me? Like this is every single day. This is every single day. This is a reality for Black people, and it's a trend now. And now I'm seeing this, like, justice for Breonna Taylor on TikTok. I'm like, delete this. Like, I was just so infuriated. And it was mainly because I had grown up in this predominantly white area my whole life, and I have chosen to be compliant my whole life to the system, to the people around me, to the racial slurs, to all of the microaggressions that I faced, letting my sisters see that in me and like pretend it didn't bother me. And I'm seeing my classmates now who have caused all this trauma post these black screens and do all this performative activism. And I was like, this is a joke. Like, I was just I can't even explain to you guys how frustrated it made me. And I kind of just took it to social media because all of these videos and pictures were kind of pouring out all over the place of people that I went to school with and graduated with, kind of saying racial slurs like the N-word all the time in text messages and videos, all this stuff. So I just simply compiled a tweet that actually had over 75 students from my high school that were my classmates, my friends. Like, I left no one out. If there was a video there that was being exposed to view, I kind of just threw it in there. And I was like, I want San Ramon to see that this is an issue here, because a lot of people were saying this is not a problem where we live. We live in the suburbs, and we're not racist here. And I was like, coming from the one Black girl in this area, okay, I faced it and I'm ready to speak up about it. And that thread kind of just went viral in my area. A lot of other kids from other schools in my district started doing it too. Long story short, I ended up speaking at a protest in San Ramon 2 days later. And this is June 1st that I made the thread. So on June 3rd, I'm walking to my first protest. There's like 4,000 people from my area. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is super cool. I'm standing on top of a truck. I've severe social anxiety. You can hear me stutter now. I'm like working on it, but definitely is a big problem that I face all the time. But I was just feeling so empowered. There was like no real fear, even though there were people who were standing on top of our city building that we marched to with literally rifles like pointed at me, like dressed in full SWAT gear. And I'm standing on this elevated surface on this truck bed, and I'm screaming in this megaphone like how angry I am. And these people are literally pointing guns at me, and I'm just like talking, and I'm like, I don't care, like, hear me out, listen to me. And I just was feeling so empowered in that moment. And I went home that night. My parents were, they were very like supportive of everything I was doing, even though they were scared, because at this point the thread had gotten so big that people were I'd literally gotten my home address leaked on Twitter, and people were like threatening to like egg my house. It was very violent the first few weeks, honestly, like very brutal. But I was like, I want to do more. I need to find a way to do more than this. And I ended up going through Instagram one day, and I just see this ad for the Golden Gate Bridge protest, and they're like, we're going to cancel this protest. We don't have a leader from the Black community to lead it. And I was like, I'll lead the protest. I just spoke at a protest today. Like, it was super fun, and I felt really empowered, and I'm gonna do it. And my mom's like, Tiana, you don't live in San Francisco. It's a little different over there, okay? Like, you're from the suburbs. And I'm like, I hate this narrative of like, you can't do something because you're so young. And I was like, I'm gonna do it, Mom. I'm gonna do it. And the next day, literally, I made a flyer on Instagram. 18 hours later, I walk up there to the Golden Gate Bridge with 3 cases of water bottles, thinking it's enough to hand out to every protester. We're expecting 50 to 300 people max, could never imagine anything more than that. And I step out of the car, and there's cameras pointed on me like I'm some type of celebrity. And I was like, I think we're going to have to cancel the protest. Something's happening, and I don't know what's happening. And it's like, no, these people are all here because they're here to walk across the Golden Gate Bridge. And I was just like, whoa, like, this is so crazy. Like, I'm only 5 foot. I couldn't even look when we were marching over everyone. So yeah, it just all happened really quickly over social media over the course of that week. And that day, there was over 50,000 people who marched across the Golden Gate Bridge in solidarity to Black Lives Matter. And yeah, just a very empowering moment for me. So that's kind of the long version of the story, but with the best details.
Well, Harriet Tubman is around your same height, so you know greatness can come from anywhere. I'll say straight off the top, and so yeah, thank you for that contribution. Now, I'm sure you all face your share of doubters and people that underestimate you. How do y'all deal with that, and how do you push through that? I'll start with you, Jonah.
Yeah, so I think that, definitely the 3 of us have all dealt with that. I think that, for me personally, a lot of my work, kind of the past year, has been in Congress and been around lobbying and writing legislation. And so there's a lot of times where, you walk into a meeting or you hop on a Zoom and the congressional staffer is not expecting, some kid to pop up on their screen. And so it just do your thing, I guess, is, what I have to say to that. And that's really just how I've been able to overcome it is, prove myself and, write a good bill, talk, knowledgeably about the, issue that I'm lobbying on, and then come back next time with 10 more young people and just pile into this Zoom, and just make it very clear that, like, just because of our age, as Tiana said, doesn't mean that we can't do something. I've met young people, I've met 4th graders even, who are genuinely more educated about political issues than some members of Congress. That's not hyperbole, that's just a genuine fact. And so don't believe for a second that you don't know what you're talking about or that you can't do something, because I've found that there's really nothing stopping young people from getting involved except for adults putting pressure on them not to.
Word. Snap for real. All right, Jamie, I have another question for you as well, but I want to ask you the same question. How do you deal with the doubters?
I mean, I've dealt with so many people doubting me, attacking me, hurting me in so many ways. At first, it really started to hurt, but now it's just like, I can't even go through like some of the stuff that I've been through with it, with, people trying to keep me down. And at some point you just get used to it and you just kind of keep chugging forward. It's kind of like that Dory when she's like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Like when I get people bullying me online or like all of this stuff, it's just like, you or people doubting you or people saying you can't do something or people trying to hurt you, you just gotta like be Dory, just keep swimming, and you just put one step in front of the other, one day at a time. That's literally, there's no secret weapon, there's no right way to respond to any situation. Each situation has its own response, and so I respond accordingly. But you just got to keep swimming. And that's been something I've been telling myself a lot, is just I mean, what was it in the there is, pardon my French, but I think in the Handmaid's Tale or something, there was like a little message on that said, "Don't let the bastards get you down," and that's basically my life outlook. Is like, I'll just keep swimming, and if anyone tries to get in my way, it's like, I'm just gonna swim around you and keep going.
I heard that. I heard that. All right. Well, you've been doing this work for a long time. I mean, starting 0 Hour in high school, the Youth March around the globe. In your experience, what's been the most impactful tool or event that you've used for your work?
I really think mobilization has been one of the main tools that I've used for my work. Back in 2018, I helped put on the youth climate marches in Washington, D.C. And 25 cities around the world. And before that, we had the youth climate lobby days. So it was 3-day action in 2018. It was in July of 2018. It was a 3-day action. First day, we lobbied 47 members of the Senate about climate justice. Second day, we had a big art build and community event to create art for the march and engage the DC community. And then third day, we had the youth climate marches. And so those were like 3 days of action. It was a whole weekend. And it didn't just happen in DC, it happened in 25 cities around the world. And it had such a big action that it actually laid the groundwork for the current Fridays for Future movement and School Strike for Climate movement. And it was like the precursor, like a couple of weeks after our march, Greta Thunberg started school striking, and then it really blew. And then like Fridays for Future blew up, but it was like, that those actions were so impactful that they kind of helped lay the groundwork for this even larger youth climate movement that bloomed a couple weeks later. So that was, I guess, one of the most effective strategies is mobilization. Though we all, obviously, it's not, you can't just march endlessly for nothing. You know, it's like mobilization with the cause, like this specific policy. It's not just like, we vaguely want climate action. That's vague. Like, that what? It was more of like, that day we were marching for no fossil fuel money pledge, and we had a specific outline. It's on our website, this is zerohour.org. We had a specific plan of what exactly of what exactly needed to be done. So yeah.
All right, so now this is the topic. This is the big topic. Yesterday was historic, right? So Kamala Harris, our first Asian American, Jamaican American, our first POC, our first woman vice president. That's huge, right? And I know y'all must have a lot of thoughts about it. I'll start with you, Jonah. What's your biggest hope for this administration?
Yeah. So I'd just like to preface this by just kind of framing politics a little bit differently. And just governance and politics is all about pressure. And so I've been pretty vocal about my support in the Democratic primary for Senator Sanders. But regardless of who won, whether it was Bernie, whether it was Joe Biden, whether it was Donald Trump, we were going to be pressuring them to do everything that we need to keep moving. And so I think that, you know, in the general election, you know, why I think so many young people came out in record numbers for Joe Biden, even though he wasn't our generation's first choice in the primaries, is because we saw him as the candidate who was going to be most willing to listen to us and most susceptible to the pressure of a people-powered movement. And so we've already seen that in just the first couple days of President Biden's administration. You know, rejoining the Paris Agreement, which again doesn't go nearly far enough, which even President Biden has acknowledged, but is a great first step, and blocking the Keystone Pipeline. But again, you know, there's so much more we can do, you know, from stopping the Dakota Access Pipeline, which we're still fighting, or stopping Line 3. And so those are things that President Biden can do just with executive orders or through the cabinet level positions. He doesn't need to go through Congress. But really, you know, I'm just excited because for the first time in 4 years, we can really just focus on moving forward and playing offense. We don't have to be dealing with the crises that come up every time the president tweets or every time Betsy DeVos decides on a new group of students that she wants to hate today. We can just focus on, here are our goals, here's what we're fighting for, and here's how we can get it done. And so I'm really encouraged also because I've seen so many more young people not just wanting to get involved with politics and getting involved with voting or activism, but specifically wanting to get involved in policy and wanting to get in the weeds and go through the actual bills that are going through Congress, going through the executive orders that President Biden has on his desk right now, because they're genuinely interested in how we actually make change. And so I think that I'm really hopeful because we've seen the past 4 years a huge outpouring of activism, especially from young people, but from people of all ages. And so I think now we can use that to properly pressure our new government to make the changes that we need to see.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, Tiana, same question. What are your hopes for the new administration?
I loved everything Jonah said. I just have to second everything. But yeah, like just kind of going off that, for me, I guess going into this election, I organized a march also. I mean, most notably, it's like the Golden Gate Bridge Girl, but it's like I've also done 7 other marches, and it's very, very important that I second what Jamie was talking about earlier. It's like when you have a protest or a march, you are marching for a cause. You have a reason behind it, because everyone's always like, when's your next protest, Yana? It's like, it's not about a march or how many people come up. It's about what we're doing and what we're the steps we're taking, and it's about what the movement is about and all these different things. My most recent march was right before the election, and it was called March for Our Future, and it was all the things that were on the line. It was like women's rights, LGBTQIA plus rights, it was Black Lives Matter, it was climate change, it was literally everything that you can think of that was at risk, kind of. And for me, walking into this election and the new presidency, I'm thinking like, obviously we have to take baby steps now. This Trump's administration, I was just like a lot of backpedaling, and just like Jonah said, it's finally like we're going forward, but I see it as baby steps. I mean, I'm a very big overachiever, I'm very ambitious, and I want to say like to attack this and let's do this and this is how we're going to do it. But I can't like personally have the biggest hopes, but just saying, like, continuing to tell myself like Gen Z has to apply that pressure. We have to keep on everybody's like butts. Like we have to keep the flame going, and that's really like what's inspiring me to keep pushing. I founded a nonprofit called Youth Advocates for Change. It was mentioned earlier, but really my mission was to kind of just amplify youth voices and inspire local action through intersectional social justice issues. So yeah, my main passion right now is Black Lives Matter, but that doesn't mean all of Gen Z is most passionate about the same thing. It's like, I just wanted to create a platform where teenagers can literally be like, I'm passionate about this. Let's do a project. Let's find a way to make this happen, make change happen in this direction. I just need funding. I need volunteers. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's find a way to do it. And it's really just about like empowering each other in order to create the change. So I wouldn't say I'm like looking forward to anything especially in this presidency in the next 4 years. I'm really looking forward to like what the youth is coming up with, these ideas to apply that pressure, and how we are going to drive the change. Because I don't think anyone in government is ever going to be able to like you have to step on people in order to get up there. No one is perfect. Like I'm a Black woman here sitting here saying I don't support everything that Kamala has in her past. Definitely not. Absolutely not. And yeah, it's great we have representation. So important. But at the end of the day, it's really about like the people who are here doing grassroots movements, all of us on this panel, all of you guys at home watching, who are being like, okay, I'm going to be a change maker. I'm going to do this, because you cannot get into that position and not, have some dirt on you and not have some deep rooted issues that are within the system and that have problems behind it. So I don't know, that was kind of off topic, but like the youth is what's exciting me. I don't really care about anyone in the big stands. It's like, what are we doing to drive the change forward? We are really the powerhouse, I think, behind everything that's going on. So yeah.
All right, going to Jamie. Anything to add on that? Your hopes for the administration?
I mean, my hopes for the administration really echo what both Tiana and Jonah had said. Also, like emphasizing what Jonah said, the Keystone XL, like canceling that, wonderful. But there's also Line 3, there's also the Dakota Access Pipeline, there's also the liquid natural gas terminal, there's just so many things that it just takes a signature to stop such horrible destruction. And I really hope, you know, in the inauguration, I feel like this inauguration was the first one when climate change was really, really extensively talked about, which was great. But I hope that it's not just words. And look, I want this administration to succeed. I was a delegate for the Bernie Sanders campaign. I cast my delegation ballot in the at the Democratic Convention for Bernie. I was a surrogate on the Bernie Sanders campaign. I actively campaigned with Bernie's campaign team. So I very much identify, you know, with those politics as a democratic socialist, um, as someone who's a leftist and a progressive. That doesn't mean that I don't want these more centrist politicians to succeed. I just need more than lip service. That's really what I need from this new administration. And so far, so good in terms of the Paris Agreement, in terms of Keystone XL. But I mean, it's great that he says climate change, but what are you going to do? And, you know, I still have some disagreements. Kamala, I don't know why she went on like a pro fracking like thing. It was like no one asked. Okay, she was just like she tweeted, Joe Biden will not ban fracking. Like, why was that a tweet? No, we should. And so after the inauguration, I tweeted like, it's time to ban fracking. Like, there are some things that the administration isn't quite there yet, but the difference between the Trump administration and this one is that Trump administration was like talking to a wall, but this administration can actually listen. And even though right now they have a pro fracking stance, with enough public pressure, education, lobbying, we can change that. Whereas before, like, we just had to brace ourselves for damage and just try to get as many people to survive the Trump administration as possible. And unfortunately, a lot of people did not survive. And that's important to remember, especially during this pandemic. It's great to have people who actually believe in the pandemic and are taking action, but it's also sad to remember like all of the people who didn't survive the Trump administration. Like, the Trump administration was deadly. And so this administration has two jobs: one, to correct every single damage to the best of their ability that Trump has caused, and two, to then, once those damages are corrected, actually move forward, because returning to normal is returning to the conditions that allowed Trump to get elected in the first place. So we have to go past normal. We're here and horrible, we go normal, and then we go past normal into like real change.
I just have to add on super quickly, and not to mention, this was a hard election to get by. Okay, this was not like easy. Like, it was very close. Like, we have over 70 million people who are still believing in what Trump's administration ran for, and I think there's absolutely no climate change. There's no problem with racial injustice. Like, still half of America still thinks what Trump thinks. Like, half of America is totally against all of our ideas right now on this panel. So like, keeping that in mind, like, there's so much education that needs to go behind all of this. Like, just education, I feel like, needs to push the whole movement, for all movements forward of social justice.
And if I can just hop in just on a little more hopeful note as well, there are more people in the US who didn't vote at all than voted for either candidate, as has been the case in every election for as long as anyone can remember. And so we still have an incredible opportunity to activate more people and mobilize more people and get more and more people involved. Because if we actually have every single person taking action and mobilizing together, that's when we can make real change.
So y'all have a lot of work cut out for y'all. I wish you all the best in that. Now, before we get to the questions, one last question. This is a chance for y'all to plug the work you're doing. What are you working on right now? How can people help? We'll start with Tiana.
Yeah, so I briefly mentioned Youth Advocates for Change. It's my nonprofit that I founded literally hours after the Golden Gate Bridge protest. Ever since then, we've done a scholarship fund for Black youth to kind of encourage Black students to go to college, get an education, and do the things that they aspire to be the next lawyer, be the next nurse, be the next doctor, be in government, do whatever your heart desires, but really trying to bring empowerment to the Black community, especially in kids. As of right now, we've raised over $26,000, and most of that money came from the first 3 weeks that it kind of launched. I think the first 3 weeks we got $16,000, which is absolutely amazing. And so we've only been founded for now 7 months, but as of right now, we just expanded to Ohio. We're expanding to Minnesota next week, and we're expanding to 7 other states by the end of February, which is absolutely amazing. I mean, it's a one-woman show here. I kind of like work all day long. I decided to not go to school or anything, and kind of just like dedicate my heart to this work that I do, and just kind of empowering the youth voice. We just launched a podcast actually last week called Amplify Our Advocacy. It's all about empowering students again and amplifying youth voices, giving people platforms to speak about things they're passionate about. And every month we focus on a different topic. This month is mental health awareness, and kind of just like recovering from all of the craziness of 2020. So every single month we are focusing on a different thing, and we have an event that goes with it. This month we're doing care packages, and next month we're having a big photo shoot for Black women empowerment, and so on and so forth. So yeah, just doing a lot of things to kind of get teenagers involved and kind of just scratch the surface of social justice activism, and seeing where their kind of niche is, and continuing to like kind of bring that education as well, and diversify our education and bring that into schools. And yeah, we have, I mean, it's a huge range of like all the stuff we do. We have kids who are super involved in politics. We have kids who literally just want to volunteer and kind of understand more what's going on. So I think just for me, empowering Gen Z and getting people involved. But yeah, like as of right now, we have like over 70 students in California alone, like mainly in the Bay Area. So it's really cool. I mean, my motto is just do it, just make it happen, because 7 months ago, I just graduated high school and I thought I was gonna be a cheerleader for the rest of my life. So now I'm like super empowered, and yeah, I never thought that like anything like this would have happened. I would have been on CNN, or I just did a commercial with HP talking about all of these different topics, like literally talking about climate change and talking about the reason we need racial equity and stuff. And that's really cool that people are like actually starting to open their eyes and stuff. So just kind of like continuing to apply that pressure and kind of take up space, especially as a Black woman growing up right now. And yeah, just amplify Gen Z voices.
Awesome. Help if you can. All right, Jonah, what are you working on currently, and how can folks help and get connected?
Yeah. So main thing that I'm working on right now, we just wrapped right before the election on season 1 of Our Future Now, which is the podcast that I co-host with Natalie Mebane, who is also the U.S. policy director for 350.org. So y'all should check that out. We've got some super cool stuff in the works, and we're launching season 2 pretty soon. So look out for that. We're really trying to, in this new season, really focus on reaching folks of all ages, but especially 18 to 35, that are interested in politics and are interested in what's going on in the world, but haven't really found their way of getting involved yet. And so I think that for a lot of folks, it can look like activism is just showing up at a protest and shouting through a megaphone or speaking on a Zoom or something like that. But as everyone on this call can tell you, it is so much more than that. You know, it's the sending the emails, it's the making the spreadsheets, it's the working, you know, with folks in Congress, it's, you know, bringing the water bottles to the protest, it's everything. And so you don't need to be the loudest voice in the room to speak at a protest. You don't need to want to speak at a protest to be involved in the movement. There are so many things you can do. And so season 2, we're really going to be going into kind of all that and how we can provide this conduit as folks who are already in the movement and provide an outlet for folks who want to get involved but don't yet know how. So I think Colleen just dropped the link in the chat there. And then I can say, don't want to reveal too much, but Jamie and I are working on a really cool project together. So
along with Natalie Mebane, who
along with Natalie,
also, she's an activist mother to us.
Yeah, so as Jamie said, our activist mom. So if you want to just stay tuned for that, we're doing some super exciting stuff. So I guess follow us on social media. Yeah, do that. And then lastly, I'm working, like I said, in some coalitions right now, kind of right now as the token youth, and trying to bring more young people into different lobby meetings on the Hill right now, pushing, you know, especially for President Biden to champion the $2,000 a month checks. I know that for the first time in what seems like a long time, Democrats ran on positive economic messaging and simple economic messaging in the Georgia runoffs and running on those $2,000 checks. And they won, I think, because of that. And so I think that already we've seen President Biden now backing off that promise for the $2,000 checks and pushing $1,400 checks. And so at the bare minimum, we need $2,000 checks as a one-time thing, but we need to be pushing for way more in $2,000 monthly checks. So as I said earlier, politics is all about pressure. So keep getting involved, keep calling your elected officials, keep demanding these $2,000 checks and that they stick to the promises that they ran on. Because we put them in office to help us and they're in office to serve us. And so the best way you can support my work is by supporting everyone in this country who needs the full support of our government.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, Jamie, what's next for you? What are you doing? How can people help?
Yeah, so I just shared my social media platforms, which is where you get all the updates of just anything that I'm working on. I also shared 0 Hour social media updates, so you get everything that they're working on. So it's just at This Is 0 Hour. What I'm working on personally is the project that I cannot yet release with Jonah, but it is on political activism. And if you just follow me in the work that I do, you'll see, because I'll post about it the minute that it's public. In terms of other stuff, how people can get involved, my book, Youth to Power, which is a guide to being a young organizer for anyone who doesn't know how to get involved but wants to. It has a foreword by Greta Thunberg. It's out everywhere, so you can just, I'll put it in the chat too, but you can go to youthtopowerbook.com to order the book. It's also out in French and Italian, if you can get the French and Italian versions, and it's out in German, and the Korean and Japanese editions are coming out soon. And that's just like a general guide to being a young organizer. And after I'm done talking, I'll share the link to get the book or the audiobook. I recorded the audiobook for it. If you like to listen to things, I lost my voice recording it and the studio was very cramped. It was like right before the pandemic. So make me losing my voice worth it if you want to listen. And lastly, okay, so this is something else I'm working on that I thought I'd share, but it doesn't quite have anything to do with climate change, but it does have something to do with activism. Outside of climate justice work, I'm also a big advocate for the LGBTQ community as a member of that community. And I do a lot of work. I'm a film student and I do a lot of work around advocating for LGBT media and representation. And I truly believe that our community needs a lot more representation in the media. And so I was like, why are there not more TV shows that star queer girls, especially queer girls from different backgrounds? I'm Colombian and I don't really see a lot of like Latina representation, especially not queer Hispanic representation. So I wrote a TV show and we shot the pilot, and I directed the pilot and we shot it, and it's gonna, the pilot episode is gonna release this year. And so I will also, it's called Art Majors. It's about a group of a group of queer Latino and Black queer women and femmes in art school trying their best to, I don't know, navigate love in college as queer women. So I will put the links to that in the chat as well. So I'm gonna get typing now on how you can follow and support all these things. And I'm also just really excited to have met 2 new people, Tiana and Kafre. Is that how I pronounce your name correctly? Yeah, excited to have met some new activist friends. I hope we'll stay in touch after this.
Would love to. All right, I guess now it's time for questions, folks. And yeah, I'm here. I would love to work with y'all. Y'all are all really inspiring. I know our participants are probably super inspired too. And some of them have questions. So
Yeah, I will guide us. Thanks so much, guys. I'm raring to go now. I'm so ready. You guys have got me on fire. But we'll start with audience Q&A and then we'll move on to post event activism work. So if you all who are listening, thanks for joining. There's a Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom page. So just pop your questions into there. We'll get to as many as I can. But I did want to start with a more operational question. Like, Jamie, when you started talking about, and then I direct, and then I wrote this thing, and then I wrote a book, and then I did the audiobook, and then I'm in school, and then I did this TV. I'm like, how are you guys managing like all of these things? Like, I mean, it's, and like you said, Jonah, it's not just about showing up and shouting into a megaphone. There's the emails, there's the bringing the waters, there's the spreadsheets, there's so much to it. So how are you guys kind of managing all of that whilst some of you also going to school and all your responsibilities?
I guess I'd really like to harp on that. The megaphone part is like 0.0001%, honestly. It's a small amount of hours of me with a megaphone compared to me in front of a computer with my eyes glazing over, sending a bunch of emails. That's that part. No one's gonna like write a New York Times article about Jamie sends emails, right? So you're not gonna like see that aspect of the work. No one's gonna be like, oh, look, they were on a phone call. But so that's not what people see. So people think that activism is this glamorous thing and you're always in the streets and doing interviews and like fighting the fight. But fighting the fight sometimes means being on annoyingly long phone calls and getting, reading emails that, or being in meetings that could have been emails and then getting really long emails. And like, that's a big part of it. And I guess the way I manage my time is just you make priorities of what you want in your life, and then you take away stuff that aren't priorities. So through high school, I don't know, partying and having a really big social life just wasn't really that much of a priority for me. So all throughout high school, I just focused on activism, had my little friend group, and that supported me. But then I wasn't trying to get popular. I wasn't trying to, and to be clear, there are a lot of activists who have had successful social lives while being activists. I just was uncool. But anyway, yeah. And so the way I managed it is I was like, these are my priorities. This is what I'm going to get done. And I will do anything it takes to get these specific goals done. That's really just the key, is just you make your priorities and you think about this. If there's like everyone technically has time. If there's a crisis that comes up, like you crash your car, you can't be like, well, I don't have time to deal with this. You have to make time to deal with that. Like, you don't get a choice. You're dealing with that car crash. And so it's kind of like the same, like you decide things that you're going to take up your time, and then you just make it happen. And sometimes that's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
Guess I can go next.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Jen and I were just playing Zoom chicken there for a sec. Yeah, I think that you have to, like Jamie said, know your priorities. And I should just say, Jamie's being modest. She is very cool. But kind of find what's important to you, and then have things in your life that have nothing to do with your work. And that, also aren't things that you have to do, but you just do because you genuinely enjoy them. And for me, that was tricky because before I was an activist, I was just a political nerd. And so in my free time, I would just be following politics. And so it's hard now having that be my interest and my day job. And so I've really had to work to find new things that I enjoy doing, so that I can kind of have this escape from the constant, barrage of terribleness that is politics. But then you kind of go back in, then remembering what you're fighting for. And I think that knowing why you're in it and grounding yourself in your personal connection to whatever you're fighting for, can kind of help you get through, the burnout sometimes. But remembering also that self-care is a form of activism, and that, if you're our age, hopefully you're going to be involved for the next 50, 60, 70, 80 years. I don't know how long humans are going to live by then. But for a long time, you should, be prepared to be a lifetime activist. And so you're not, the 60 years that you put in is going to way outweigh, the one meeting you skip, or the one protest that you end up not going to because you just need to take a nap. And so take care of yourself, because in the long run, you'll be able to do way more good if you're healthy and motivated and passionate and genuinely believe and are excited about doing this work.
That
I wish first of all, I can say it 1,000 times. You guys are just so inspiring to me, and I'm so grateful I'm in this panel right now talking to you because this is exactly what I need to hear today. I have a little different approach. About an hour before I got on this, whole mental breakdown, cried myself. I'm sitting at my desk right now, but there's a guest bed right there. Bawled my eyes out pretty much all morning long, sat and crawled in the bed and said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm done. I went upstairs, I took a shower, and I'm like, okay, let's get ready for this panel. And that is the reality of activism for me. It is very up and down, especially because I'm constantly surrounded, I'm gonna be so honest, with so many people who have been in fields for so long. Like you guys right now have been doing this like your whole lives. I'm 7 months in. 7 months ago, I was trying to be the popular girl at school, and I was trying to fit in with everything. And now it's like, okay, like I have to figure out who I am myself and like, what do I love to do? And it's like, I don't know anymore. And I have lost all my friends. I went from someone who was super social and like literally only cared about being around people to like 24/7 I am locked up in here. There's one lamp and sometimes the light is on, but sometimes the light's too bright for me, so I close it. It's like trying to really like prioritize me time and like know myself. So I'm still navigating through that. I'm terrified to start school, in all honesty. And like, Jamie, I'm gonna shoot you a DM after this and like really dig into that, how you're like managing school and activism.
Let's talk. You seem really cool.
Please.
Let's be friends.
Yes,
Are you still in California?
Yes, I am.
I was born in LA, so whenever I'm back in California after COVID,
yes, we can hang.
Or if you're ever in New York City, hit me up.
Oh, I will go to New York just to see you. So, but yeah, like in all honesty, I'm still navigating through all that, and like panels like this really refuel me, and it makes me feel like, okay, I can power through the rest of the week because I know there's like light at the end of the tunnel. Like in a few years, I'll feel like everything's settled. But definitely for me, it's like realizing when my burnout is coming. Like if I have a really, really busy week, then I usually am like, oh, I feel like I can conquer anything. And then the next week is kind of slow. And it's like, I feel like I'm doing absolutely nothing and there's no purpose on life. And like, I'm like suck right now. And that's how I've been feeling all week. But like that's the reality of it, and I hope like everyone at home, they're probably like, oh, like you guys are so cool. Like, no, this is real hard work, and I know everyone has felt it, and it's kind of just like taking it day by day and prioritizing like mental health and like really knowing when it's time to take a break.
Yeah,
I'll be honest, sometimes that feeling lasts for months, and it has lasted for months for me. I went through a period of extreme burnout where I just like, I don't know, it was really unhealthy, and like, I've been, and I wrote about this in the book too, but also like, sometimes you got to learn to step back and like be in it for the long run, because I've had far too many of those breakdowns, and I don't think anyone should be working themselves to that point. And it's not fair. And I really think that, yeah, I don't know, like it's a spiral, but I haven't figured out how to do it, but I want to like create more of a baseline. So I'm not overworking or underworking, but I'm just like gliding, but I haven't found that yet. I wish you to find it. Hopefully you figure it out before I do. But
I've got to add to this as a lifelong activist, as a person who's been an artist for so long, who's had to juggle everything. Like the juggle gets easier. It just does. I remember starting my own nonprofit, having imposter syndrome and bawling at my desk as well, being scared of meetings. The same way I was scared to rap on stage the first time and bawling my eyes out, trying to be strong about it. It just gets easier, and you're going to find your groove, whether you like it or not. Enjoy these hard moments. Enjoy these galvanizing moments for you. They'll be the story you tell, not the fact that you've made it and it's easy now, but these moments are the stories y'all will tell. So as much as you possibly can, enjoy them and know that it gets easier, and it just does, whether you like it or not. It'll get easier.
Appreciate it.
Well, we're just about out of time, but I'm glad you guys talked about that, because one of the questions from our audience was, how do you, advice for folks who are feeling fatigued with activism? And I think you kind of all answered that there in your last set of remarks. So thanks for
my other advice is escapism. You can see a little poster for my favorite movie, Birds of Prey, behind me. I enjoy watching as many TV shows, movies, etc. Not just because I'm a film student, but also because escapism in healthy doses, which I sometimes take it too far. I'll like binge an entire TV show in 3 days, but sometimes just escape from the world in a healthy way, as in watch Margot Robbie be awesome for an hour and a half. And like, you know, you just got to do that too.
Well, I want to close with just one last, if you can give like your rapid response, all four of you, Coffrey, I'm putting you in there too, to this last question before we wrap up is, one piece of advice for, I know we have young people on this call because we told people to have their young people, their kids in their lives on this. What is your advice to these future activists? One piece of advice. Coffrey, why don't you go first?
Okay. I'm a real big fan of making sure that your life is dedicated to what you're most passionate about. You know what I'm saying? If you're most passionate about whatever it is, you can make a business around that. You can make that your paying job. You can root your successful, stable career in that pathway too. So I just want people to know, especially in their activism, whether you are 1 or 92, if you can understand what I'm saying right now, your life can be so different in 10 years from now. You could be on CNN in 7 months from now, you know what I'm saying? Or being an activist, an advocate. So if you feel like you don't have enough advocacy in your life, just jump into it. Just jump into it. And you can also be wildly successful following your passions in activism. So
I'm gonna hop in right after that because that's literally, like I said, my motto. It's Nike, just do it. Like 18 hours, organized a protest, changed my life. Like you can wake up tomorrow and decide to do anything. Like that's what really keeps me sane. And I don't want to, I know it's like advice to young activists, but I really want it just to make it advice to like young people watching in general. Like do whatever you love, because at the end of the day, if you're going to get burned out doing something, it better be something that you love. And if you get too wrapped up in it, at the end of the day, I don't know if everyone's going to agree with this, but you can disappear. Like you could go run away to France if you want. Like, and that's what keeps me going is like, dude, if I don't want to do this tomorrow, I can literally go to Italy and you'll never see me again. And I'll just be living my life in Italy. Like I just booked plane tickets to Hawaii for next month with my family because I was like, guys, I'm taking you all to a trip. I can't be here anymore. And you can do that. Like just do whatever your heart desires and like don't feel pressured. And this is advice to myself too, like don't feel pressured to post on social media what you're doing and like update people and like make sure that people know that you continue to do something if you're an activist. Because I always feel like, oh God, I have to post something because these people are like waiting for my thing. They're asking what my next thing is. And it's like, you don't owe anyone anything. Like you owe yourself, all of you, and like prioritize that.
Okay, Jamie, I know we all have to leave. We're running over time. So last word of advice from you, Jamie, for any young people on the line here. Want to know?
Don't neglect the other aspects of your life outside of organizing. I neglected those aspects of my life for so long, and I'm only just trying to, and it left me in a very weird place. And so I'm trying to prioritize making good memories, which is something that I never really prioritized before. But now I'm trying to be purposeful in like making memories and not just like checking off to-do lists as well.
Yeah, good point. Jonah, last word on that question.
I'm going to leave folks with something that one of my science teachers used to tell me back in high school before every exam, which is, you know more than you think you know. And just every young person who's watching this, every adult who has a young person in their lives who might want to talk to them about this, you know more than you think you know. And you have the ability to be that change in your family, in your community, or hell, in Congress, if that's what you want to do. And so get involved. The way that I got involved is just kind of faking it till I made it. Faking it till I made it. There we go. Long event. And just like kind of pretending that I could do anything until I convinced myself that I could really do the things I was trying to do. And then it just so happened that I was able to do it. And I was really fortunate to have the opportunities that I've had. And I think that, that's something that unites everyone on this panel is just, we're really lucky to be able to do this work. And there are so many activists out there who already exist and who are already doing this work, myself included, who are willing to, step out and help out new and emerging activists. Jamie wrote a whole book on it, on just kind of like how to get involved and how to do whatever you are best at in order to make the world a better place. And so don't be afraid to take that first step and make a difference.
Well, I just want to thank you guys so much for being here. After you've told us all the amazing projects you're working on, I kind of feel bad about taking you away from all that for an hour. But I know you have really inspired the people on this call. You have really inspired me, and I want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our audience who joined us tonight. I hope you walk away raring to go. So take care, everybody. Good night.